Hello and welcome to the King's Forum podcast show. I have two very special guests. Anna, how you doing?
I'm fine, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. It's been a while, hasn't
It was.
it? And Charlotte's back again.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, no, it's always a pleasure, Char. Today's going to be all about emotional baggage and how we carry them from relationship to relationship. So I brought Anna on as a self-love advocate and empowerment coach to talk about some of the inner work that we need to do before we go on to a new relationship. Shah will be asking the questions, and me and Anna will be answering and taking it from there. And let's see what we get from this.
Okay, great. Okay, well, hi, Anna. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot of lovely things about you and your work from people. So today, as Mike's already said, we're talking about emotional baggage. With your expertise and experience, could you just firstly just talk a little bit about what emotional baggage is?
Oh, wow. Emotional baggage can obviously look different to every person. It's baggage you might have collected already in your childhood. Something when we're talking about relationship, it could be the way you've been taught what to think and believe about love, what to think and believe about marriage, what to think and believe about relationships, friend wise, or in your job, or romantic wise. Also the relationship to yourself, like you watch your parents, you watch your family, and that's where you already collect baggage. Now, when we talk about emotional baggage, I think we're talking about negative things. We also collect positive things. Like if you have a parent who always, pushes you and says, for example, my mom was always like, "You are beautiful, love your brown skin, don't listen to what others say." She taught me self-love in a different way than other Filipino moms would do. Other Filipino moms would tell the daughters to use whitening cream to not go out in the sun and to be ashamed of their dark skin. So it really depends where you grow up, what's your your background.
Yeah.
And that's where you already collect baggage. And then, of course, when you start going into your first relationship, into your romantic relationships, these traumas from your childhood or these wounds can grow into something even bigger. And if we don't get taught that, we always get taught that everything is, we get validation from the external world. Like bring good grades home from school, that's when you're a good girl or a good person, or you achieved first place in a race, you've really done well, you're good athlete. And so we always think that another person can just give us the validation, the love, the trust, the worthiness. But we never get taught that we ourselves have to do it ourselves. And that's when emotional baggage starts to become bigger and bigger, because we're always searching for outside validation. So that's like the basic.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's great, and it's I think you couldn't have said it any better than what you already have. I know that there are a few questions, of course, we'd like to ask. One very important question, but they are all important. One of them is, why are we so quick, do you think, to go from one relationship to another? Why do you think that men and women tend to just go from one relationship straight on to the next one without having that period of time for their own self-healing and to deal with any trauma or baggage that they're carrying?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think it starts, with emotions. You have to think about what have you been taught when showing your emotions? Especially as a man, many men grow up with the belief that if you show weakness, if you cry, that's not masculine.
Definitely.
You're not going to survive in this world when you show tears. You know, you have to be the bold one and never show weakness. And but it can also happen for women if they grow up. You know, it always comes back to your childhood. How were you allowed to show and express your emotions? And when you've been taught that showing your emotions is something weak, you're not allowed to do it in any way, and you had to suppress them and repress them, it's going to build up. You're going to be like a volcano.
That's right.
You know, and as soon as you're in a relationship and maybe this person can't solve your problem, your inner wounds, which are not easy for you to articulate because you don't obviously know where it's coming from, what's the exact problem. You feel like this person is not worthy enough to spend a relationship with.
Yeah.
And so you go like, okay, I'm not feeling happy all the time. This person is not listening to me. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard, validated. When I get angry, this person doesn't understand me. I think it's not worth it to continue this relationship. And I think now, since, you know, Tinder and the Bumble and all these apps opened up, it's now, I think, even more difficult that people really have the patience to say, you know what, I have a problem. Let's talk this through. Not yelling, not screaming, not pointing the fingers, but just giving the space to listen. Please listen to me, and I'm going to listen to you, and then let's meet in the middle. But this patience is not there anymore, I believe.
Do you think so that part of it is, you know, like the inner child in us? So, you know, like if when we're children and we grow up, as you say, we're conditioned a certain way and we see certain things in our life, and any kind of undealt trauma that we don't deal with at that time because we're too young to kind of really understand and how to work on ourselves. Do you think that when relationships go wrong, that sometimes actually the inner child in us is actually just kind of like screaming out, but yet because we may not see that, we just allow kind of anxiety to kind of kick in because of fears? Do you think that could play a big part in it as well?
Totally, because we ignore our inner child. We still have our inner child. We still carry our 4-year-old, our 14-year-old with all its insecurities. And it's always, every time you have these insecurities coming up, these doubts, this belief like, well, okay, my boyfriend is going out now. Maybe he's cheating on me. Who is he texting with? It's actually your inner child yelling like, please see me, please listen to me, please hug me. And it's not your partner's job to do that for you. Only you can reparent your inner child. But you have to become first aware of that, because you'll be like, you have these emotions coming up and you point the finger towards your partner and go like, fix this. I feel like shit, fix this. When it's actually like, oh, wow, maybe I should sit with myself, meditate with myself, or write my 4-year-old, my 10-year-old self a love letter and be like, you know what? I see you. I hear you. It'll be all fine. We're good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared, don't they, to face their inner self, and which is going to lead right on to this next question is what inner work should we be doing before we start a new relationship? And I'm sure that is aimed at a relationship with ourselves, with another person, a relative. What inner work should we do to help that child within us, but also our adult logic mind and any trauma or upset that we're facing at the same time? Because it's hard to kind of create a balance, isn't it? Like, especially when you become aware of, okay, this is the inner me crying out, but there's the adult logic me that is upset because this relationship has gone wrong. So it's like, what kind of work would you recommend that is, you know, could help us along that journey, that process?
Well, what about Mike? Do you have what's your opinion? Because you haven't answered yet a question.
You know what? I thought I was going to be silent here. I thought it was the night off I was having.
What do you think, Mike? What inner work have you done within yourself before you started a new relationship?
The biggest thing for me, I would say, is about the expectation side. Is not what I like to do, because it used to get in the way of a lot of my relationships, and I used to struggle with it because I used to have these big expectations of what a ideal relationship looks like, and I used to come in with that mindset already. So, and I used to always find that when I was in there, these relationships never met these expectations I had of them. So they were very high, and oh yeah, what a woman should be like, our experience, the intimacy, when we date, give and take, compromise, what have you. I used to come with all these expectations into a relationship before, and then I said to myself, it's not doing me any favors. So then I just left them. And what I did, I came into relationships with a clear head, a clear mind, clean slate, new person, new experience. What's this going to be like? And take it for what it is. And within that, that's the learning about the person and each other and making the most out of it, rather than saying, oh, it should look like this. And why isn't she doing this? Why isn't she like this? She's her individual. And I think that's important, and not to think of, and you know, with the baggage comparisons and with previous relationships, what have you, things like that you can be doing. But I don't do that. I always have this clean slate, and I'm trying to find out about the person I'm with and us, because that's very different of you with someone else. It's not going to be the same. We're all individuals. So we should never do that. We should never have these expectations other than respect and loyalty and the basics coming in with. But generally, you're trying to have a clean slate and say, this is new, this is fresh, like a new job or something. Yeah, starting a new job, starting a, you know, or a new hobby, whatever it is. No expectations. This is what it is. I'm going to make the most of it, and this is a new experience. So that's how I got around that type of thinking.
Yeah. So if I may add to this, so I believe that you're never done with your inner work. You know, your inner work is like an endless ongoing journey. So to believe that, okay, now I'm done with my inner work, I'm like so on fleek, let's go into this next relationship, like that's that's not realistic. So in any new relationship, new shadows will come up. Anything like doubts, fears, belief will come up with any new partner. So the best advice I can give anyone is to be self-aware. Become self-aware of yourself and call yourself out. and know that the partner is not your therapist. He's not, she, whatever gender, is not your doctor. It's not there to fix your problems, to solve your problems. It's not your parent. It's not your mom, your dad. It's a partner who is going on an equal journey together with you called life. And this partner is there to go through any obstacles with you based on respect and trust. And anything else is work. So you have to be willing to really work through the dark times, through your own inner shadows, to deal with the shadows from your partner, whatever is coming up with that person, because the other partner also has emotional baggage bringing into the relationship. So it's really about putting it on the table and having open conversations, not hoping that the partner can read your mind, especially with my female friends. They're like, how come he didn't know it? Like, a man can't still read our thoughts. Like, it's not yet happening. So open, direct conversation. And what I believe is so important is to know your values.
Yeah.
Know what you stand for, know what you value and cherish in your life, and see if the partner has similar or the same values. You don't need to have the same hobbies. You don't need to have the same interests. My husband and I don't even share the same music. We don't have like same friends. We don't love, like we have really little things in common. And from the outside world, anyone would say, how come they're together? But we're sharing the same values in life. And that's our base, the connection. So self-awareness, know your values, and bring anything up to the table, but it's not your partner's responsibility to clean up your wounds and your traumas. It's your work.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I brought the expert on, because then you explained that a lot better than I did.
True, and it's a great eye opener as well, especially for anybody that doesn't know how to. So, you know, like for example, you said about when you become self-aware, and then you think, okay, right, I've been having this behavioral pattern for so many years of my life. I need to change this, but hang on a minute, I don't know how to. And I think sometimes it's not always broken down as to, okay, well, what tips, what can we do to change that behavioral pattern? And I think that is great when you have somebody like Anna, yourself, who specializes in this, that can give them tips as to, okay, so for example, like you're saying about, you go from one relationship straight to another, and you're aware of that. However, it's like, I don't want to do that, Anna, but I don't know what to do to change that. Do you know what I mean? So you giving the guidance and the tips will help people that don't know what to do learn to know what to do, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And I think it's definitely needed, because I think there are a lot of people out there that want to learn to love themselves, you know, become more aware, and make changes within themselves, but it's just not knowing how to, especially if they, you know, they're used to do, if they're used to their default being a certain way, so to speak. So yeah, it's really great to know. And I know that with speaking with Mike, we were saying about emotional baggage comes with 6 different types of behavior. Please correct us if you're wrong, if we're wrong, sorry. And there was a few, 6 different ones. One was emotional distance. And if it's okay, we'll just go through each one individually, if that's okay. So there was a question put to, in regards with emotional distance, why are we so afraid to get hurt? It's quite a generalized question, Mike, isn't it?
It is, but I thought I'll put it out there because it has an impact on that, because of how we behave in a relationship. Sorry, of being so guarded and protecting ourselves so much so that we don't let anyone in, and it creates a distance, an emotional distance between you and your partner, because you're not letting them know how you're feeling, because you're so concerned and not hurting. So this wall you've put up, this front you've put up, you've been so guarded that your partner's wondering what's going on here. I'm giving you this, but you're not giving me anything back. So that's why I mentioned it. It's about, because I used to do that a lot, because I have a big heart. I was so afraid of getting hurt all the time that I used to put up these walls up, and you know, previous girlfriends used to always say, like, I never know what you're thinking. I never know how you feel about things. You never express. And that was all because I was so afraid, you know, to get my heart broken, because it happened a few times, especially in my early 20s. So I was so afraid for my heart to be broken again. I wouldn't let them in completely. I wouldn't be vulnerable in front of them. I was always staying guarded and and being very, you know, keeping that distance emotionally, always kind of at arm's length, and never letting them in too much, because I'm like, no, if I let you, I like you, but if I do that, my heart's going to get broken again. So that was really from like my experience, how I used to be.
So it's like you're attaching yourself emotionally.
Yeah. I used
Ah.
to do a lot of, because I was heartbroken a few times. So it made me afraid of opening up to the next relationship, the next person I was dating, because I thought it was going to happen again.
How did you overcome that?
By saying, you know what, a lot of this stuff is, for me, it's about, for me, I matured and became more self-aware. Yeah. So it's, you're more sure. It's never perfect. Of course, we're always working on ourselves. I'm just saying, I became a lot more self-aware and, sure of who I was. Because a lot of that happened in my early 20s when you're still trying to discover who you are as a person. So, you're just out there, you're just like, whatever. And you're a bit naive going into situations, seeing the world, because you don't have much life experience. So kind of just seeing the world as, oh yeah, we just can be out there and meet people and have fun and enjoy life, and not realizing actually there's people out there that are quite cruel. There's people out there that will take advantage of you. There's people out there that will break your heart, and they just want this relationship for their means and nothing else. They're not really that bothered about you. They just want to see what they can get out of you. So all those life lessons, I think once you go through that and you experience things, you get wiser to it, and you're like, this is me, accept me for who I am. And you see the signs anyway. So I'm not gonna give myself wholeheartedly to a person who showed me signs that they can't be trusted. Their behaviors have not been positive and made me feel I could trust them. So why would I then be like, oh, this is the whole of me, have me here, I'm open to it? You'd be like, you're still going to be cautious. So you let them earn it. It's like steps, isn't it? We go through this stage, and that stage. Oh, you showed me that, yeah, you can be trusted, and you've given a bit of yourself, so I'm going to give a bit of me. And it's that give and take, isn't it? And that for me, that's life experience and self-awareness. And with that, and that's what comes with that, with being better in relationships, is by going through some of the hard times and experiencing things. And without that, it's very difficult to know the person you want to be in, and what a healthy relationship looks to you, basically, isn't it? It's about your experience and what works for you with your values and your, the things you really want out of a relationship.
Yeah, beautiful said.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I should go into your line of work down the line. I'll look.
You should. Relationship coach.
I look at I was just like, love guru. He just has this.
Yeah, you can definitely see the male version.
I can see that. I can see that, man. Yeah. Nice cool hat or something, a top hat or something, and Yeah, anyway. It's not about me tonight.
Maybe it's interesting to get a man's perspective as well, isn't it? I think it's great to have a specialist and a female and a mouse, in a male's perspective. It definitely balances it out, doesn't it? Because you hear both sides as well. Because I mean, like, for example, like you see with the serial dating, they say that a lot of that is mainly men, but actually it's now becoming more women. I mean, Anna, I'm sure you would definitely know more than us, that obviously a lot of people date more than one person at a time because they're more focused on quantity than quality. Can you just explain a bit more as to why men and women are prone to doing that a lot more? Is it?
Well, I mean, there can be different reasons why you're dating so many people. Maybe you just came out of a long relationship and you're like new to the single market after 10 years of being in a relationship, and you're like, how does this work? So you dive in and date many people. But there are also people who would never want to attach themselves to a relationship and be like, I'm just going to be on a single market forever and ever. Thank you, Tinder, for this. So it's difficult to say why someone is dating so many people, because what's their intention? But I think there's nothing wrong to date many people if your intentions are clear with the other person you're dating, right? If you're saying, hey, I'm fresh to the single market, I just want to explore, then that's fine. The other person know what they're up to. But if you're playing, you're playing this love game and the other person falls in love, but you actually just want to have 3 dates with this person or whatever, and then drop them, and this person is heartbroken, then that's not cool. So it's difficult to say why people nowadays are dating so many people. So I don't want to put them all in a box.
Definitely.
It sounds a little bit like, sometimes when I've heard about serial dating, sometimes I think to myself, is that their inner child just having fun and playing. You know, like a child at school plays so many different children and they're happy. So that like one friend's really good at sports, so they'll do sports with that person. This kid is really good at singing. When I want to sing, I'll play with that child. Sometimes it makes me wonder, with serial dating, is it a case of like you're meeting, that woman or that man is meeting that need, that other person is meeting that need? Does that make sense? I sometimes wonder, like, could that be a possibility? Because you're feeding the inner child within you, because that little child is happy. They've got that love because all their little needs are being met. Does that make sense? Through the adult mind.
Of course.
I sometimes wondered that.
Yeah, that can be, that can be one of the reasons, like, seeking validation. Like, okay, so this person swiped, we're on a date. Let's see how hot this person thinks I am, or let's see how far I can go with this person. So if I can go, into the bed, that means like I'm really, really hot. I did it. So that's like seeking validation it's an unhealthy way, because anytime you seek validation from the outside, you're gonna keep chasing for it, and you're gonna always need to fill this gap. But yeah, sure, that's also a way to make your inner child happy, just being seen and felt and heard, coming back to that again, to the hurt inner child. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Go on, Mike. So, go on.
I kind of look at it this is it's if we go back to emotional baggage and serial dating, it's almost like going from one thing to the other. So the whole thing of, it's not going to be the same case for everyone. You're right. You can't put everyone into a box because everyone has their own reasons for it. But I've seen certain instances where, afraid of commitment, going from one thing to the next. Don't want to be hurt, so the best way, let me end it in a way, or you've been caught cheating with someone else, so that was your way, without having to step up and tell that person you don't really want a serious relationship from them. And then you just end up piling up this baggage from each relationship you're going to, from the next to the next. And then you may get to that point where you finally found someone you want to settle down, and you've got about 20 suitcases that you bring into this relationship. And it's kind of like, so I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, it depends on the situation, of course, because it may be something just what someone wants to do. But I've been there myself, though. I've been in situations where it's ended up doing more harm than good, because it's one unresolved thing to another. And it just creates this pattern to, as I said, you're ready to settle down, and you got all this unresolved stuff hanging over you, and that you're taking into this new relationship with someone you actually think I want to settle down with. So it can be a whole counterproductive thing of, and not be beneficial to you. So it is all about what you want and and I think, as you said, I think you got to be honest with people from the get-go of this is what I want from here, and I'm not trying to string you along like you're going to get a committed relationship. I've said I don't want one. We're just going to have fun together. I'm not in a situation where I want to settle down, and this is the situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be interesting to know for anybody that doesn't know about self-love, what can people do, Anna, to help learn to love themselves? If you could, shed some light on that.
The most important thing is to become self-aware of your self-talk. Like, what do you think about yourself when you look into the mirror? Do you actually like what you see? Or do you start, putting yourself down? It starts with your body. It starts, do you compare yourself to other people? Are you really, can you be alone? Or do you always have to meet up with friends, jump into the next relationship? That's where you already see, okay, where do I lack self-love? And it's also a journey. We have days where we're feeling really worthy and happy, but other days we have these dips. So it's really becoming self-aware of your self-talk, what you think about yourself, and be really honest. And then you could ask yourself, okay, where does this lack of self-love come from? Why do I feel that I always have to overachieve? Why do I think I have to be a perfectionist? Why do I think I have to be this good girl? Why do I have to put on makeup even though I'm just going to the bakery? Where does this come from? And it can be like, maybe you had a strict parent who would always say, be perfect, do your homework perfectly. If you bring home a B, then you're not worth it. So it's really questioning, okay, where does these insecurities come from? And you have to really go back into the past and ask yourself, when was the first time I felt not worthy enough? When was the first time I felt scared for being left alone? Maybe it was a divorce of your parents. When was the first time in my life where I felt not beautiful enough, not tall enough, not white enough? When was the first time in my life I got punished for, not doing the dishes or cleaning up my room? That's the root of it. And most of your limiting beliefs, they stem before you were 7 years old. So you were programmed in your childhood before you reached the 7th year. And so you really have to sit with yourself and journal these questions. And then you'll see that it was just in this situation, you thought this reaction is the right thing. You thought that, okay, I got punished for not cleaning up my room when I was, 6 years old. So that means if I'm not perfect at work, perfect in my relationship, dress nicely as a woman should do, or whatever gender, then I'm not worthy of. And that stems maybe because the punishment of not cleaning up your room and you didn't heal that. So you have to go back to the 6-year-old and be like, you know what, you are worthy. You're just perfect as you are. It's okay. You can leave your room like that. I'm here for you. I got you. I see you now, and you're loved. That's what self-love is, like connecting with your inner child, but getting to the roots of the insecurities.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely true. I remember when I'd done some self-work on myself, and the minute one thing I became aware of turned into 2, then it turned into 3, and then it's like all these realizations, and it's like so overwhelming. And I was like, wow, the inner child in me, she's so sad. Like, I need to figure out what has made her so sad, and also what can I do to make her feel so happy. And it does require a lot of work. And I found that when I was not in a relationship, I found that I had the more time and the more space to work on that for me, because it is a work in progress. It doesn't end. It's always going to be a lifetime thing. But I found that it was so vital for me to make that time before I'd gone into another relationship to make sure that I started that change. And it's actually quite eye-opening, the lack of self-love that we can actually have for ourselves, because we can say, oh, I love myself, I paint my nails, that's self-love, or I do a bit of, I mean, I love meditation, but, you know, I could say, for example, it's meditation, you know, meditation is my, you know, I'm loving myself because I've done a bit of meditation, but actually it's a bit deeper than that. They're the things that make us really feel good. But if we push that all to one side, it's kind of like, do we actually love ourselves? And if so, how much? That's what I've kind of learned, and I've found that the minute I started going back, as you said, Anna, from the earliest memory, it's just amazing of how much our subconscious actually holds, but also how much we forget, so to speak, until we actually take that journey of self-love. That's what I experience from it. But it's definitely, I think it's really important that we do that. We have to, you know, at some point in our lives, have to find that time to actually work on ourselves and our self-love. I did want to ask you, Anna, in regards with like emotional baggage and self-love, do you believe that, you know, we have the generational cycles, so, you know, there's patterns like this grandparent had their kids and their kids done the same as this. Do you think that their emotion, our parents, for example, their emotional baggage can actually be put onto us from when we were young, in the sense that of how you said how their perspective is on things and what they, you know, their unhealed trauma from their childhood? Do you think that it can be put onto our kids, if that makes sense, like subconsciously?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so trauma can be brought into your DNA. And so I've been listening to some spiritual teachers, and they say that up to 17 generations back, you are carrying the trauma from your ancestors.
Wow.
So that's something I also work as an empowerment coach, because so many people neglect this information that maybe you've come. So I was born in the Philippines, and so my family was, you know, the Philippines were conquered by the Spanish, and then came the Americans. So, and my belief, so yes, last year I had a coach for myself, and we worked through some baggage, because I had a money block. I had a limiting money belief, and it stemmed from generations, past generations. And in my family, we would have entrepreneurs, but when the Spanish came, their businesses were gone. They lost all their money. So I had this belief, I had this fear, and I didn't know how to articulate it, but I had this fear to become successful and to make money. And we had to go back to my ancestors and uncover that and healed it. And since then, I'm really free of that. So yes, you do carry the traumas, even of your parents or grandparents, your mother womb. Subconsciously, it's programmed in your DNA. But the good thing is, even if you don't know your ancestors or even your parents, you can heal it. You have the power to heal it just by doing the inner work.
Do we go back? I mean, that was really kind of a big eye opener. You're saying about the money, having to go back, and how, you know, the DNA. That is just like, wow. I can't believe that. It's quite shocking, really. But how do you go back? How far back can we go to find the root? Like you said, like for money blockage. How do you discover that? How can we find a way to discover what is actually blocking us that is not actually ours?
Well, so I did a session with a spiritual teacher. So which was via Zoom, because she lives in the States, I live in Germany. But so you could find someone who can do this ancestral healing. but you're actually always connected with your ancestors all the time, you know, because time is an illusion. Now we're getting really spiritual here. Time is an illusion. So if you want to connect with your ancestors, even if you don't know them, you could just talk to them right now, you know, sit in meditation and be like, what's up? I'm Anna. I have this question. You know, I feel kind of insecure with going on to the next relationship, opening up my business. Why is that? And maybe, or you can ask your parents, your family, hey, what do you know about our family? Like, what about relationships? Was there someone who got really hurt by the partner, or money things, whatever it is? And do some research on your family by asking your what's that word? Your family members. But you can also hire a spiritual teacher, ancestry healing. I do that partly on my work because I believe it's so important. There are many ways you can get really do the inner work for that. But actually, you can just talk to your ancestors. They're always there around you.
Oh, well, what about you, Mike? I mean, I do apologize. I know we went slightly off topic, but I feel like this is still all kind of connected in a way to self-love. And it's just kind of, you know, great to kind of get an understanding and actually your work, Anna, the work that you do with your clients. I definitely know that the viewers would want to know a lot more about the work that you do. If you could be so kind to let us all know.
Oh, yeah. Well, so as an empowerment coach, I help people find their own purpose. You know, we all have our passions, and I think now, since last year, since the pandemic, many people are waking up to their lives and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this 9 to 5. I want to do something more fulfilling. So I lead them to their purpose, remember their purpose, because it's actually about remembering that, and then help them really create the first steps to create a business with your passion or your purpose, whether it would be side business or a full-time business. And so that's why it's so important to do mindset work, to do inner healing work, inner child work, shadow work. That's what I do. So I combine spirituality, I combine it with NLP, with mindset work, but really embodying it. I also do like body movements and meditations, and I work with your energy. So that's like summed up what I do as an empowerment coach, and self-love is a foundation of it too.
Cool. Thank you. Is there
And
any questions, Char?
I know it was there was a few, wasn't there? But I think we have covered quite a lot. But in regards with what you were saying earlier, Mike, in regards with like emotional distance and your thoughts on it, what is your thoughts on projection, as to why do we project how we are feeling or our own insecurities onto others?
Yeah, a lot. You know what? It's that whole classic thing. It's easier to blame other people, isn't it, than look into yourself. That takes real strength for character, strength for mind, being self-aware, to start looking at yourself first. You know, a lot of people blame others and be like, oh no, that's your fault, and that's without looking within and saying, actually, this is probably about my insecurities here, to why I'm projecting this onto that person, and making it out like it's their fault or their problem. And it's you start with yourself. It's like anything. And that's why I thought this subject was so important, to get Anna on here talking about self-love. I know we'll mention relationships as well, but it's so important to do that self-work first before we then look to start new relationships or go to the next relationship. We need to work on ourselves first, or you're always gonna, as I said, you're always gonna be going from one relation to the next, because it's just all unresolved stuff that you're bringing into this. And relationships are not easier as they are without any baggage. So you're you're always going to have some sort, but I mean the type that's really destructive and can be cause you a lot of problems. You're always going to have something there, because that's just how we are as people. You're always going to carry something. We're emotional beings, but it's not carrying those negative things into your new relationship and making it even harder than it needs to be. So that's why we do it. We don't. It's easier to put our problems onto someone else, or blame someone else, than actually look at ourselves, because that's hard. That takes real work. You know, you working on yourself. That's the whole thing when you're giving other people advice, but then you can't do it in your own life. It's easier to look at someone else and say, oh yeah, you should be doing this, and why aren't you doing that? And then when it comes to you, you're like, I don't know what to do here. And you're like, no, you do. It's just a lot harder when you're working on you. So
yeah, it definitely is hard. I think also, you know, as much as we can have relationships with, you know, our friends and our family and our you know, our husbands or wives, I think self-love is is one of the most important relationships that we can have, which is with ourselves. Because I think if we're never really true to ourselves, and we can never really, that's my belief, if we can't be true to ourselves, we can never really fully be true to other people. And that's something that I've learned with self-love, that actually you've got to be true to yourself. If not, then, you know, it's the same thing, the repeated pattern is just going to kind of, you know, rise as Anna says, like the shadows will just come back up, and next thing you know, you're back at square one again. So I definitely think that, you know, people need to recognize the self-love aspect, and I think it is started through the lockdown, and I just hope that more and more people see that. That's my thoughts, really.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to add, Anna?
No, it's so true what both of you are saying, that I think since this pandemic started, many people have so much time at home. So that's when you sit with yourself and not distract yourself by going out to parties and too much alcohol and stuff, but really sit with yourself and your thoughts, get to know yourself. That's the first step towards self-love. Just means really getting to know all your shadow sides. You're just not light, you're also light, but you also have your shadows, and you have to bring them up to the surface. And that's what self-love means, really loving yourself radically and unapologetically, and everything about yourself.
100%.
And you know, when we bring our shadows up, sorry, you know, when the shadows come out, because a lot of people get frightened when it's like you're facing yourself, and then the good. A lot of us want to just see the good of ourselves and not recognize the down our flaws. But what can, in regards with that process of self-love, Anna, what can people do when it comes to facing the darker side, the shadow, so to speak? What can they do to, instead of running away from it, how can they, you know, get themselves through it, push their way through that, to accept that, okay, that's just part of me? What tips could, you know, people use, if that makes sense?
You said it already. It's self-acceptance. It's really, it's really becoming first self-aware of yourself, and looking at, why don't I like this thing about myself? Why don't I like this part of my body? Or why do I think of myself as not good enough? And get back to the roots of where they stem from. And then actually, you know, saying to yourself, you know what, I accept my body, I accept how I am, I accept my flaws, my weirdness, my uniqueness, because that makes me me. It would be boring if every one of us would look the same and have the same attributes and character traits. So it's really about self-accepting, accepting yourself.
Cool. Platforms, social platforms you're on, Anna, that you want to shout out while you're here?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is I am Anna Geelhaar, and my podcast show is called Unleash Your Self-Love. I'm also on TikTok, but not as active at the moment. So Instagram and podcast show, send me a DM and say hi.
Char, thank you very much
Yes,
for hosting the show again. And I thought it was a night
that's
off.
okay.
I thought I didn't have to say much tonight. So yeah, it's a shame. Anyway, please,
But
please like, subscribe, and share this video. And see you guys soon. Thank you very much, Anna, again. Char, thank you. And
thank you.
see you later. Goodbye.
Thank
Meet you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.